The network needs reporters on the ground in Afghanistan.
And you folks are all the unmarried, childless personnel in this bureau. Kim, are you going to be joining in?
The travel or the crime? How many people do you need?
Hi, welcome to What the Flick. We are going to review a movie that's also kind of like What the Flick. It's sure. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, WTF. It is not the latest Wilco album. Thank you for understanding that joke. You might not. I'm a loser. I
definitely don't.
Ben does not. So Alonzo, please describe to us what this is about.
So this is based on a memoir of an actual journalist who was a news producer in New York. The network basically calls in all the people who have no spouses and children and says, hey, who wants to be embedded? And so Tina Fey makes her way to Afghanistan, and at first she's in over her head, and then she winds up being pretty good at it. And then maybe becomes a bit much of an adrenaline junkie and starts getting herself in situations that are maybe more dangerous than would be advisable. Take a look.
Miss Baker, this is an extreme environment.
Grenade, down, down!
I've seen people with actual experience make bad decisions here.
You should let me interview you.
But I do not know you. How can we get to know each other?
Yes, kid, excellent.
It's bananas. Here, I don't think I can do this.
We are all here for a reason. So what's your reason?
I just wanted out of my job. I wanted out of my mildly depressive boyfriend.
What are we doing, Kim?
Just wanted to blow everything up.
That's the most American white lady story I've ever heard.
Look, either we go big or we go home.
I need a story. I need to get something on the air.
It's too dangerous.
Don't you think that would be great, that kind of exposure?
Pretty good for you, too.
Keep his back in the car!
The usual Kabul happens.
Today, Kabul's first licensed female driver, Gulbahar Yousefi, hits the road. In the first... That sucks. That sucks for women.
I thought through the first hour that we were just in a movie that I liked, but a movie where it was just, a smart lady goes to Afghanistan and look at all the interesting things that happened to her, right? That I was
wacky hijinks.
I was like, when is this going to be about something? But I wasn't like, when is this going to be about something? I was like, I wonder when this is going to be about something. I'm enjoying her hijinks. And then it did start to be about something. I thought maybe it took a little long from a structural point of view, if you're the kind of person who cares about that. But in the end, then when it did become about something and when it was over, I sat there in that theater and I watched the credits, which I don't usually do. And I thought, I think I really like what I just saw. I really, really like what I just saw.
Well, I appreciate so much that there's complexity to her and that she doesn't always make the right decisions. We don't always necessarily like her, right? That's ballsy. Like, and to make her not just like, oh, haha, so the girl goes and she's a fish out of water. Like, it challenges how we feel about her throughout the course of the movie, about her decision-making and who she aligns herself with, and that's pretty daring, and I appreciate that challenge.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. This is a movie that it does have a complicated character. It's not, this could have been an hour and a half of fish out of water gags, right?
That's right.
And it's not. This is a character who is flawed. It's a real person. You feel like it's a real person. And so if the movie doesn't really follow a standard rhythm that you would expect, it's because life doesn't necessarily do that, and I was okay with that. I think that...
Certainly life there.
Right, life there. And, you know, if there's tonal shifts in this movie that don't always work, I think it's saved by the performances. You know, now granted, some of those performances feel like they're in different movies, right? I don't think that, for instance, Billy Bob Thornton and Alfred Molina are in the same film together, right?
But there's an absurdity to them both, right?
You know, understood, but, well, yes and no, right? Because I think that Molina's character definitely has a level of absurdity that I think Thornton's character doesn't. And I think that Thornton's character fits better into the serious movie that Tina Fey is in here, and Molina's character sits better in the goofball movie. And
yeah, there's a goofball quality to Molina's
character.
And they both shape her, though. They shape her experience.
They do, and I felt like, but the difference is, I kind of want to see, I would additionally be interested in seeing more of the Thornton character. The Billy Bob Thornton character, that general, is interesting.
Totally.
And I kind of want to see...
You expect that character to go a certain way, even after he'd already not gone that way a couple times. I kept thinking, well, he's going to be a regular ballsy Marine general, you know, balls to the wall Marine general, and he's going to be dismissive of the women. And then he kept not being. He kept being an interesting, well-developed guy. And every time I was like, surprised, kept being surprised.
Whereas Molina's character, although Alfred Molina is great,
Right.
Like it's like, all right,
There
you
was
know
a-
exactly where that's going every step of the way, and it's okay. But that's where I think this movie loses a couple of points, is that the tonal shifts don't always work, but there's a lot more good than bad here. I also want to point out really quick, sorry, this is Tina Fey's best work, I think.
Oh, no
She's
question.
So good in this.
On the big screen, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's really she's a full-fledged actress here.
Yeah, no, totally.
Really good.
The directors are the guys that did I Love You, Philip Morris, and wrote Bad Santa. And I think they get. I was more okay with the tone. I liked that there was a certain kind of anarchic sense of this sort of dark comedy that comes out of tense situations. I like that it was a movie about a woman in this complicated situation where whatever the movie was saying about things that she should or shouldn't do weren't about whether or not a woman should or shouldn't do them. It was more about the choices that she was making and whether they were wise ones and whether they were, that ultimately she was doing the right thing for herself. But I think you could make this movie in a way that like, oh, well, really, women shouldn't be in these war zones, and they because it leads to them acting in this way that they shouldn't.
But it does quickly and frequently address the rampant sexism that she had to
Oh,
experience.
well,
and
sure,
overcome,
yeah. No, I mean,
they all underestimate her.
Yeah,
as
totally.
a girl or whatever.
And she and Margot Robbie developed this really interesting information.
Yeah.
It's like relationship is like practically the only women in the kabubble, as they call it.
And the right in Kabul, what's great about Margot Robbie, first of all, it's just she's very good, and she that friendship. There's no catty competitiveness between them. I mean, they developed that a little later, but she's embraced in the beginning, and it's legitimate. It's not like keep your enemies closer. Like she's
they need each other.
They're like, oh my God, another girl, fantastic in this hideous, awful place. And then Margot Robbie is funny and embracing her own beauty.
Oh my God, it's so nice to have another woman in the house. In Afghanistan, you're a serious piece of ass. In New York, you're like 6, 7. Here, you're 9, borderline 10.
What are you here, like a 15?
Yeah.
Huh.
They have a couple of lines about how pretty she is, and she's like, yeah, that's right, I'm this pretty. But she's clearly also good at her job and also as ambitious as any man would be.
As daring, yeah. I love the relationship between Tina Fey and Martin Freeman.
Yes.
I've always liked him.
Yeah.
His timing, his presence, he's just totally charming, and that does not necessarily go in directions that you expect.
And the relationship with her and her fixer.
Oh, Christopher Abbott.
Who was I also thought that was really interesting, because that's another one where it could have been this constant fish out of water.
Yeah.
And there's a depth to that too.
Totally.
What is that movie that he's in that he's great in?
James White?
James White, go see James White. We never reviewed it, but it's great. A great little indie from last year.
I do want to point out, Christopher Abbott and Alfred Molina are both really good in this movie.
Yeah,
but I think in this day and age, not casting a more geographically appropriate actor for that role feels weird. Like they're both playing Afghans, and they're both like basically wearing a lot of brown makeup.
Right. I kept expecting to see Cliff Curtis show up too.
Totally, yeah.
Right. But then that would at least be
they
closer.
Are both good, but like there's no
Cliff
way.
Curtis is Maori.
I know that, but I'm just saying he's playing Jesus in that Risen movie. He wouldn't have to do brown face, is what I'm saying, which is what these guys are having to do. Christopher Abbott is super white, and Alfred Molina is European. And at least look, as opposed to Gods of Egypt, where they have white guys as Egyptians and they're terrible, at least these guys are giving good performances. But I still think that
it's worth mentioning.
It's
totally
worth mentioning.
I was going to mention it. I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
So.
I should say also the ending is perfect.
The ending is perfect. Look, it's good,
man. It nails the landing.
Yeah.
This is good, man. This is good. This is good.
It's a smart movie,
really
and
good.
no one's seen it.
And it's funny, and it's it's not written by her writing partner Robert Carlock, who wrote 30 Rock.
Yeah.
Lauren Michaels is this comes from the Saturday Night Live family. He's an EP.
He's a producer. Yeah.
And she's a producer in it. But it's good, and I guess people think it's going to be a comedy, sort of the way the trailer's done, and it's Tina Fey. And I think, just very quickly, that having her there and having her be able to turn in this good a dramatic performance, but while you expect every scene to be funny, creates this unease with each moment. Like, is this going to be funny? Is this
going to be something awful?
Is it going to be something awful? And I guess there's a possibility that might work against the movie. But here, I thought it worked incredibly well.
I'm glad the title too, I think, might.
And I'm glad you mentioned the ending, because I think this is that rare movie that finishes stronger than it starts. I think that the second two acts are actually stronger than you know, that first act, like you are getting the fish out of water jokes, and I get that that's set up to make the rest of the movie pay off, but there's a fair amount of that.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't fall apart at the end. There's
no, I think it actually finishes a lot stronger than it starts.
Yeah, the last line, the last shot, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
That's perfect. All right, so what are our numbers then? Go ahead.
I give it a 7.
I gave it an 8.
8.5.
8.9. Loved it.
Our average is 8.1.
It's at 61%.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's so much better than that.
So much better than that.
Fresh.
Let's go see it. Bye.